Greg, I got to tell you, there's an evolution point in business. When we start working with companies, we can always tell once they tip to understanding profit, not top line,
Mm-hmm.
and they understand that it's a positive to say no at times.
Mm-hmm.
Being selective about the business is so incredibly important, and you can tell that's an evolutionary state. That's when a business has moved to another level, and it's funny because you're right. I see the same thing. Up 7% increase this year. That's one of those classic discussions of 5 whys.
Mm-hmm.
If you just let them get to their description of why they are doing that, and you just keep asking why, it's amazing how quickly that runs out, and it turns into that's just what we've always done.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, there will be no organizational realignment, no realignment in terms of what types of clients or customers we're focused on. It's just running faster on the hamster wheel. We're going to do more of the same to generate more revenue. And some years it works, some years it doesn't. And it's interesting to me, and I'm sure you see this all the time too, where a lot of business owners, they just take all their revenue from all their customers and all their products and or services they sell. They put them in a pot, they stir it up, and at the end of the year, hopefully you get a black number and not a red number. And they're not sure really where it came from. And so without doing a deeper dive in terms of the financial analysis, which they're capable in the vast majority of cases of doing on their own, and then getting really intentional about that, which drives a higher level of net profitability versus a lower level, then it for lack of doing that, it becomes a top line revenue grab. And top line revenue grabs tend to create a lot of chaos, a lot of dilution in the business, a lot of destruction of value in the business, and ultimately create a situation. And there's a period of time when businesses start up, you almost have to do a top line revenue grab just because you need the cash flow. But the longer that goes on, the more likely, in my experience, is the businesses are not to make it long term and not to have a transferable asset.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about as we're talking about that change, right? In the beginning, there's oftentimes, the CEO is the top salesperson, and then you bring in another salesperson, and they were great as a salesperson, not necessarily as a manager. So talk a little bit about how an organization can structure around strategic sales,
Mm-hmm.
and what would you put into that?
Yeah, and you mentioned it, and a lot of times founder-led sales are effective because the founder has a deep technical capability, a good business idea, a lot of passion, and a network. And they leverage all of those things to be able to just brute force their way into some level of organizational growth. They are bringing people in, and very often the founder of the organization didn't come from a revenue generating type of functional area. They are scientists, they're engineers, they're accountants, they're whatever they are, but they tended not to come from a sales and marketing environment. So sales and marketing tends to be very much of a black box, and their belief is they just need to hire people that are experienced in sales, send them out in the market, and they're going to bring in more revenue, and it's going to make me as the owner more money, and everything's going to be great. Well, again, without creating that definition and environment and strategy around what good growth looks like, because not all growth is good growth, what a good customer looks like, because we love all customers, but we certainly don't love them all the same. And they build a strategy that accomplishes really 3 goals. It is, what are my needle moving customers in terms of organizational value creation and net profitability? And how do I maintain those customers? And do it in a way that creates scalability, efficiency, and effectiveness. Where is growth opportunity embedded in my existing customer set? And how do I extract it with the right level of staff alignment? Again, meeting the threshold of scalability, efficiency, and effectiveness. And ultimately, what becomes the lifeblood of any organization is, how do I enable the organization and position the organization with the right customers that have the right needs that are aligned to my delivery capabilities, and create net new revenue and net new clients. And for lack of those strategies, you tend to, again, operate in that whack-a-mole, undisciplined land grab kind of environment. But those strategies are based on the financial model that creates organizational alignment that ultimately will create the guardrails for those you're bringing into sales, that creates repeatability, creates a process, creates the right expectations, creates the right alignment of compensation to that which creates organizational value.